It's September 21st, 2023. Welcome to Axiom News Live, where every Thursday we engage strengths to catalyze change. Here we start with what's strong rather than what's wrong and lift up the stories of people whose work in the world we've become connected to and care about. I'm your host, Peter Pula. Today I'll be hosting alongside my comrade in arms, Sean Loney, and we are delighted to have as our guest today Darcy Wood. Darcy Wood is the executive director of both Aki Energy and Aki Foods. Welcome to both of you. We do have a second guest possibly lined up, but thanks to the wonders of time zone trickery, we may have lost her and may be able to find her a little bit later. So we'll look forward to her joining us if that can happen, and if not, we'll invite her back for another time. Sean and Darcy, welcome. It's good to be here with both of you again after I think a couple of years was the last time the three of us were in a room together.
It's nice to be together.
Thank you for the invite, Peter.
You're very welcome. Why don't we begin with, Sean, I kind of like to explore the relational lineage of how we ended up in rooms together. And I honestly don't remember how it is that we met or how the connection was developed. I know you and Darcy have worked together for a while. It'd be interesting to hear a little bit about the story between the two of you, and also to remember how it was that we met, Sean.
You know, I can't remember meeting you, Peter.
I think it was maybe because you're a famous author and I was looking for celebrity bait.
Maybe, or we did a podcast together.
That's right.
And
there
I thought,
go.
wow, this guy knows how to ask questions. And also recognizing that the kind of stuff we're working on in Winnipeg is important. So I think that's how we met. We clicked right away. And Darcy and I remember meeting him. It was a much more memorable occasion. Darcy and I co-founded in the beginning with some other lovely folks, including Kaylin Taylor, who's now at Purpose Construction, Sam Murdoch, who is the Darcy, the COO of Fisher Recreation, and Ray Starr from Peguis. But we were interested at the Social Enterprise Center in Winnipeg and getting going on First Nations, and people just kept telling me you got to talk to Darcy Wood. So, do you remember that, Darcy, when you dropped by to meet up with us?
Yes, I do remember. At that particular time, I was working at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs as the housing analyst, policy analyst. And I did receive a call from Sean, so I went by to meet him. So introduced me, took a tour of the Social Enterprise Center, met some nice folks over there. Some of them are still around over there. So that was in 2013. Actually, it was 2012, I guess. It was just the turning of the new year there.
I think we should have celebrated, maybe we still can, our 10th anniversary, 10 plus.
That's right. Yeah. We've been talking about it all year long, 2023 now. And we just keep talking about it. We haven't put it in action yet. So,
well, we're really busy. So for the listeners, both Darcy and I work at Aki Energy and Aki Foods, and we'll be exploring both of those awesome social enterprises for throughout this conversation. In the beginning, we were working with ground source heat pumps, and we had this arrangement with Manitoba Hydro where we call pay-as-you-save financing, where they would provide the upfront resources for the geothermal installs, and in exchange they would put a charge on the utility bill, which they would continue to collect till they got all their money back. And we thought that was pretty innovative. But Peter, you'll love this. We were going to get one First Nation to do 50 geothermal installs, and so Darcy got interest from 2. And Darcy, tell Peter what happened after that.
Well, actually, Sean, I sent out a letter of interest to all the First Nations and other doable in southern Manitoba. I think I got about I can't remember if it was half a dozen or maybe a bit more. But then there was I was looking at Pegasus and Fisher. I asked Sean, can we do both? Because they're right side by side with each other, very close. And I knew from talking to people they're very competitive with each other. So essentially, we met with the chief and counselors in both communities, and we set the motion up to get started. And of course, we started with the training aspect of it, and we ended up with 15 from each community, so we had 30 trainees, and it was a 2-week training period. 1 week was held in Fisher River, and then the next week in Peguis. Yeah, then we started rolling out. Part of the training was that it had to be done hands-on. So they did two groups of doing 3 installs under the instruction of the instructor, and after that they were on their own. And part of that whole process was that at the end of the 2-week training period, they had a chance to write their ICSPA. Sean, may want to with that acronym.
Yeah. International Ground Source Heat Pump Association.
Yeah, it's a grueling, and you need a very high percentage. I think 95% or something in order guards, right? And out of that, I think we got pretty well. I can't remember, a third probably people passed that.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing thing.
So Peter, Darcy looks kind of innocent, but so Fisher River Cree Nation is Cree and Peguis First Nation is Ojibwe, and they're 20 kilometers apart. And Darcy said they're quite competitive. So he'd go to the one First Nation and say, "Oh, those other guys are ahead of you." He'd go to the other First Nation, "Oh, those other guys are ahead of you." So instead of doing 50 ground source heat pumps at the end of the year, we had done 100.
Wow.
And so here we are 10 years later, and Aki Energy has now installed.
I take it's a friendly competition, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very friendly, yeah.
Okay, good.
So we've installed well over 700 systems now, most of them in those 2 First Nations.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
And ready to grow quickly. We should probably talk a bit. Let's start with yesterday, Darcy, and we'll work our way backwards. But
right.
You went to an announcement, and for the listeners, there's an election in Manitoba right now, and Aki Energy was invited to an announcement by the NDP. The NDP's 22 points ahead of the Conservatives in Winnipeg, where 2/3 of the seats are. But tell the listeners roughly what the announcement was all about.
I'm sorry, I'm just got a tickly throat right now. Yeah, so roughly the announcement was that NDP, if elected, that it would put 5,000 heat pumps in homes that are eligible throughout Manitoba, and that includes everywhere. And they're going to probably do. I don't know what the exact numbers. It'll be over a four-year period for local installers, and of course we're one of them. And it so happens that we only do on First Nation work. And earlier on in the summer, we had decided that we want to do some urban work as well. So we were looking for the proper equipment to use. And then here is the kicker. We have a young lady, Haniko Shane. I believe you had interviewed her at this
right
as well. So she
hope
wanted
to again. Yes, yeah.
She wanted to have an all-female crew. So of course Sean jumped all over that, and so we're in the process of doing that. So that kind of goes hand in hand when we have planned to do. It was just great. So, and also part of what Energy does is we train workers. So this will come in very handy because there's a strong component in the announcement as well, not just installing, but also training qualified workers to do the installs. Sean,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, they're looking at putting $4 or $5 million into training, and they said on the list is Aki Energy and and Darcy and our co-workers Don and Don Sands and Honey Kershane were there as well, and so we're looking like if the NDP wins the election, we're gonna be busy on top of busy. So we're pretty excited.
Yeah, that we are. So, well, we'll take it as it comes. So and then, but we're certainly geared up for that. We had planned to be doing some work anyhow over here, but this is kind of a welcome news for us. This kind of, I don't know, maybe they were thinking about geothermal. I know that I do know for a fact that the last time they had incentives, the PCs didn't go that direction. So this is a welcoming change if they do actually win.
Yeah, and it's nice to see a party recognize that. I believe our defining issue, certainly in Winnipeg, Manitoba, but I think across the country, is our ability to connect the people who most need the work with the work that most needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's especially true in Winnipeg. But Aki Energy has employed a lot of people over the years. So after we got going a few years in, we went to Darcy's home community of Garden Hill First Nation, and Darcy, you pick up the story from there.
Okay, yeah. Actually, we went up there. I was interested in looking at two schools. There was a high school and an elementary school right beside. I was thinking of using alternative energy to heat those. I know we were thinking about biomass system. You got to remember that I got to mention that I was away from the community for about 5 years. I was a chief there, but I go visit there, but I never knew the community, the level of diabetes that were there. So our concern went to, okay, we got to provide healthy food as much as we can in this community. And so my brother was worked in that field to prevent diabetes from happening. So he was the diabetes worker there. And around the same time, the provincial government at that time were merging two departments together, and we got a call from the deputy minister saying that we're merging two departments. We got about $300,000 that we need to expend. We don't want to put a treasury board. Is there anything that you folks can do? And this is where Aki Foods entity was born. And then basically we used that money. What we wanted to do was build a farm, what do you call a farm, a big huge garden. So the Garden Hill First Nation Council jumped at that opportunity, and they cleared about 14 acres of land so that we can put the farm there. So we have this video called the Beecham Project. It's on our website. And what that is that we basically put a farm in a box, a trailer, a sea can, and we put in what we needed. So it was basically we had a tractor, building material, some stuff to make chicken coops, and a pen, and everything that you needed. And we did hire a farmer from southern Manitoba by Brandon there. His name is Robert Guilford, and he's been working with the communities for a while as well. And we had 4 arrows, Brian Byron Beardy assist with our getting involved there. So we had a lot of the ADI worker, Larry, at the community. And we did take a tour. There was some backyard gardening, some chicken raising in the backyard. And what we did was then basically kind of I had we had to make a soil too, because of when they scraped the topsoil, which is basically clay underneath there. So topsoil is only like about 6 inches. So we've been since 2015, so we've been making soil using the fish out there. So and a bit of peat moss where we can. So we're probably got about we don't have the full 14 acres, but probably we're using half of that. We got about 7 acres going. We even had an orchard there, and we now have we have that sea can converted to a greenhouse on one side, and a place to harvest the chickens, the layers, and the layers. We have a chicken coop, and we actually have 3 living quarters over there right now. So it's been pretty growing every year, and we're just wrapping up, shutting everything down right now. But here's a little side story about Sean and I. When Sean, when we got the news that we're going to get this amount of money, me and Sean hugged for the first time. And literally went,
started something new, maybe.
Yeah. And also maybe Sean, I don't know, you would tell your side of the story about the how you're connected with Garden Hill First Nation.
Yeah, my grandparents were United Church ministers there when Darcy was young, and turns out my grandma, who I was very close to, and Darcy's mom were very good friends, and I've encountered many of their friends in my travels there. It's been a very, very special. So my grandparents, Wes and Agnes Harlan, they moved to the town I grew up in, Emo, Ontario. And so these folks from Garden Hill would come. And in many ways, I feel like I was just heavily influenced by their experience in Garden Hill, even though I had never been there until I went up there with Darcy. Mm-hmm. But it's had a huge impact on my life. So it's been amazing to be on this journey, Darcy, and both Aki Energy and Aki Foods. Mm-hmm. But we'll tie both stories together. And Peter, let me just say that we were having troubles on both fronts as we're interacting with colonial governments. In the case of Aki Energy, the government of Canada would not allow us to continue with this on-bail financing because they were losing control, basically. And that's colonial governments. I mean, a big part of it is control. So we came up against that block, and at Aki Foods, our chickens, and we're growing 1,000 chickens at a time, they're ineligible for incentives. But the Northern Store, a monopoly retailer that sells mostly unhealthy food, it seems, their imported chickens that are deep fried and sold as French fries are perfectly eligible for the incentives. Yeah. So we kind of went on we put up a hell of a fight. We wrote an army of problem solvers. We had the minister up there. We went to battle with the government of Canada, and we got some good licks in there, Darcy. But in the end, what happened was a bunch of foundations took notice and said, we signed this document saying we're going to take the Truth and Reconciliation Commission seriously. And we think we'd like to weigh in on your behalf to help figure something out. So was it in Edmonton, Darcy, that we met with some foundation representatives?
Yeah, that was in Edmonton. We had initially made contact with them a year prior here in Winnipeg. We did a presentation on they had the innovation conference here,
Right.
and we presented our Aki Energy, how we got here, what the innovation of using the pay as you save at that time, and then it was around that time when we had to literally ask permission from the federal government that we can go work on First Nation communities to save them money. And we started off with Peguis and Fisher, as you know. Then we went added two more communities, uh, Long Plain and Saugeen First Nation, which is in the
Right.
vicinity. And we did, and we were going to move on to the next community, and they told us, no, you can't. You cannot move the communities. You're not allowed. And this is where we went to battle. And this is where we also hooked up with the foundations. On the following year in Edmonton, we went and presented our Aki food story. And then we met with them on when it was over, a few foundations got together of how we can be able to go past these programs that we were working under, and basically uh, great minds, great people that were there. We're still working with them, a lot of them, and this is where they decide, well, let's show them that it can be done differently, and that's the spark that made it possible for us to keep going. We are now into this. Sean, you can explain this. What do you call uh, community purchasing? So it's a process where that the the foundations would put up the upfront money, and then the government would purchase outcomes. It sounds simple, but it's a hard work. So Sean, maybe kind of go in detail of how that works. Actually, Sean wrote a book on that as well. So
Yeah. Well, so at this meeting in Edmonton, and even the earlier Indigenous social finance conference, where two beautiful humans, Jeff Sear, who I think at the time was the head of the National Friendship Center Association in Canada, and Paul Lacerte, who founded the Moosehead campaign. And I think they were both really integral in finding some other way, like rather than changing the rules inside the system, just to come at the government with a completely different way looking at things. And we now see that in indigenous economies, they don't have love and compassion separated from the regular economy. It's embedded in. And so what that looked like, Darcy, you described it perfectly. Instead of funding, the money comes from foundations up front in the form of an investment. And we do our work. In the case of geothermal, ground source heat pumps, there's multiple departments that benefit. Reduction in utility bills, reduction in the number of people on social assistance, the reduction in carbon in the atmosphere, increase in employment, and even Manitoba Hydro benefits, utility benefits. So they created this Raven Indigenous Capital Partners, and we'll have them on this show at a later date. And we negotiated with foundations and government these arrangements. So that's how Aki Energy was able to continue, and we're looking at a major increase in activity. And what Darcy was talking about, the announcement yesterday, was over and above all this. So, and with Aki Foods, they similarly said, well, the main financial beneficiary of the work you're doing is the government of Canada in the form of reduction in diabetes. So what we're looking at there, and Peter, I'll let you pick things up here to ask Darcy a few questions. But on Aki Food side is supporting 1,000 people, and we would take their blood sugar levels at the beginning of a 3-year program, and then we'd get paid based on how well we do to reduce blood sugar levels. In Garden Hill First Nation, 4 to 5 children will have type 2 diabetes. And so it's beyond an epidemic at this point. And we realize that approaching government with a funding model, just it's like a squirt gun on a forest fire. As Mark Sobrano said earlier on one of our shows, we need to look at ways we can really scale the things that everybody knows works great. So here's where we're at with both. Darcy's the CEO of both Aki Foods and Aki Energy. I also support both social enterprises, Peter, and we're set to change the country.
I was gonna when you said, Darcy, that the government wouldn't allow you to move and work with a third community, and that not allowing. Curious what form that took, and then when you came together with the foundations, what was it that dissolved that resistance? Like, what power did they have to stop you, and how did you?
Yeah.
What was the pathway to dissolving it?
Yeah. Well,
or did you just end run them and never mind?
Well, we mentioned earlier that we used the Manitoba Pay You Save, where Manitoba Hydro at that time would pay the upfront costs, and then the occupant or homeowner would pay those that upfront costs through their billing, and they would still pay a lower price than they would normally have. So the problem that we encountered with the government was that if you're on social assistance, then they're not eligible. And there were a lot of people that were on social assistance. And at that level, that's when they said we cannot have that, because our policy states that if you're on social assistance, we won't pay for that. We won't pay for that service at all. It's considered as an investment on something, to pay off something. We're not part of that.
Okay.
And we didn't know what that meant. So this is where our battles went. We first approached here, then we ended up going to Ottawa, where I had to kind of drag Sean out a couple times on a couple meetings.
Well, you said earlier that you described the story of the first time the two of you hugged, which suggests to me that there were other times, and I understand it was a bear hug that took place at one point. I think you were carried out of a meeting, were you, Sean?
Yeah, we were. Well, more than one, but well, I guess Darcy was hugging me from behind. But just talking to these civil servants, and the minister was in agreement with us, but that didn't bother them any. And we're saying, like, okay, the Northern Store deep fried chicken gets incentive, but our chickens don't. That seems kind of wrong to us. And it's like, well, that's not our job. And yeah, that's too bad it's like that, but we're not going to do anything about it. So yeah, it kind of rubs you the wrong way. And similarly with on the energy side, saying, yeah, we know we're saving money. We're guaranteed to save money. And there's going to be a lot more employment, but we're not going to allow you to do that. So the path to changing was just working, instead of presenting changes inside the existing system, which were really powerful changes. We proposed this pay as you save system. We're coming at them really essentially flipping government from a funder into a customer, because governments value what they buy. They don't value what they fund in the same way. So we're going to them and say, look, we'll install, say, 250 geothermal systems. So we'll show you, we'll work together to come up with the metrics, but we would like you to share the savings with us afterwards, the savings that you're getting. And similarly, on the diabetes front, there's a version of this being done in 3 other countries, but not in an indigenous setting, and certainly not in Canada. So this will be the first that Aki Foods is working on. But in Israel, it's really easy to explain. And the nonprofit sector is working with 2,500 pre-diabetics, and they're getting paid based on the number of them that don't become diabetic within 3 or 4 years, or some length of time. So this is how we see these indigenous economies being respected, is allowing the love and compassion being embedded in the economic model, and using procurement, because governments are familiar with procurement, and they are very, they value what they buy. And so both of these companies, are social enterprises, are ready to grow very quickly, and I think will be amazing models in all kinds of other ways to see reductions in these stubborn social problems.
Mm-hmm. And this is where, on the second part of your question, Peter, was that where did that spark come? This is where the those foundations and then potential investors said, well, let's show them, but how do we show them? And it was up to them. Well, how about we do it, and then we go and see if we can sell this. In making a long story short, there's more intricate parts to it of how they came to be. Um, and it's all also based on the community itself. This is called the community-driven outcomes purchasing or contract. So when we started the diabetes project, we went to all the four First Nations in the Island Lake area, which is known as Anisininew Nation. And the governance structure, there's Anisininew. That's that's where our Grand Chief resides and operates from. We want to ask them, if you were to reduce the diabetes rate, what would you want to see? And we went and gathered all that information, and then we met with all the community members, the health directors, the leadership, people that work directly on the ground, and then this is where Raven was part of the whole process as well. They had what they call a solutions lab process. Well, we got the information, you guys know what you want. Now let's pull all resources together. And if you have them on your show at some point, they'll explain that this whole process. And we have potential investors sitting in the table, potential outcomes buyers sitting at the table, Health Canada folks, and even the doctors and some other people at ERIC. So everybody's at this table talking how we're going to do it. So we're at this stage now where we can be able to kind of almost implement it. It's almost at the implementation stage. We're working closely. On the medical side, the Anisininew Nation has a direct health authority. They'll do the component of working with the cohort of 1,000 and keeping track on them, and then there'll be other programs and other incentives so that they can be able to lower their blood sugar level. And that hasn't been really announced yet, but I'm sure there'll be a big announcement. This project's going to go ahead, and we're part of that as well. But we're more part of what we do as Aki Energy and Aki Foods is that we build capacity in the First Nation communities, and capacity meaning the training portion of it. So a lot of the work will be done by individuals from that community. So that creates employment opportunities. So that's what our mandate is to do. And our board of directors are from those communities as well. So whatever they do, it'll be part of, everybody will be part of it. Like, it's community owned, community driven, and it just so happens I'm from that community as well. So it makes it easier with the transition thing. So we're looking forward to great things in that field, much like with the Aki Energy side as well.
Beautiful. Okay. So why don't we take a short break there, Darcy? I was going to lean into a little bit of what's alive in your work right now. It sounds like you've started us along that path naturally, but we'll take a short 60 to 90-second break, and when we return, we'll see what cooks up. I am leaving a little bit this first segment with I can't shake this idea of a farm in a box. That's now on 14 acres, 7 acres of which has been cultivated along with with a greenhouse and pens, and anyway, farm in a box is some small thing I'm taking away. All right, we'll take a 60-second break, and then when we're back, we'll continue to unfold the story of what's taking shape in your world, Darcy.
If you would like to experience genuine connection with others, being heard, patience, levity and laughter, warmth, light, smiles, new, deepening, and healing relationships, then cultivate community with us. Coined by participants as a fortnightly feast for the soul, these 90-minute gatherings hosted by Axiom News offer a weaving of small group dialogue led by carefully crafted questions, followed by light, whole group reflection. Each dialogue round deepens connection and enlivens possibility between and amongst those who participate. All are welcome. Learn more and RSVP for our next gathering by visiting the Events tab in Anew Commons, our sister initiative in Mighty Networks, at anewcommons.mn.co/events.
Some of the things, on reflecting on the story that you, Darcy, and Sean have told, and the one that you're living, is that you approached a colonial system with solutions, and in many cases, you met with resistance, but you kept working to press for change inside those systems. But when it didn't come, you didn't stop there. It seems like you then went to other partners. So you were working with the foundations you mentioned, and you cobbled together new partnerships and new relationships to move things forward with or without the help of a system, so to speak. Darcy, you spoke about building community capacity. You spoke about bringing a variety of partners to the same table in the social innovation lab. I might not have exactly the right name for that. And the community did things differently. So not only were you sort of working to counter a system whilst talking to it, but when meeting the resistance, you built community, relied on community, and are building capacity in community to create, to fulfill the possibilities that you could see and that you could imagine. And I think that's, to me, that's a story worth really lifting up, so that we can see by your example what it takes to make these shifts, and that it's possible. You're now embarking possibly on a new step. Darcy, one of the questions I have is, what would you like to see happen through these next steps with Aki Food and Aki Energy, and perhaps what would you personally like to be experiencing as you take those steps into what's next?
Yeah, just on the last part there, it feels we come a long way. Basically, not we started off with pay as you save, as we mentioned, and it just so happens that we're forced to kind of almost go in this direction. And we met all these great people along the way. Now we are at this stage. Take Aki Energy, for example. We are, of course, COVID did actually happen, and we had to, because we work in communities, and there was lockdowns, and we wouldn't be able to go there. We did go at certain points in time, but through a lot of whole process just to stay in touch. We did a lot of Zoom meetings like everybody else did, but working with the community and not being able to go there. And thankfully, our partners, Raven Cup partners, helped us a lot with keeping our lights on, making sure that we have our staff okay during those times. But after we got out, there was still things were starting to open up. Raven contacted us and told us that we have an outcomes buyer for the energy side. We were doing work, but we didn't have an outcomes buyer. And of course, it was a government. And it was the CMAC department that was interested in providing the money so that we can do. So we did 124 units installed, and we're just finishing off this summer. But we also got a surprise bonus on top of that. They said, we want those homes that have heat pumps in them. We want them to ensure that the life of that home is longer than, so we got some renovation money as well to fix those homes up. And that was a very welcome news as well. So we had to basically hire another individual because we didn't have a kind of a project manager that knows about buildings and envelopes and stuff like that. So now we have somebody doing that as well. Now we're embarking on another working with CMHC, Raven as a, and then we're working in Sioux Valley. So we're just finishing up the training component there. And again, we're doing the same thing with the Sioux Valley Dakota Nation. They are they're trained, and we're wrapping up. Our people are there doing all the assessments for each home. And also we're kind of working with other companies outside of there. And also Efficiency Manitoba has been a great assistance as well for us. We did manage to get some training dollars off of them because they want to see people being employed, and they want to be able to save energy. This is all part of their realm as well. So it kind of fits in with Efficiency Manitoba and other organizations as well. We're very pleased because of this reconciliation going on. There's a lot of companies out there that do believe in that, and they try and help out as much as possible. And also the Anisininew Okinawan, from the Island Lake area, they're also embarking on trying to be more resilient and more business minded. So part of the whole operation of having the communities wanted a healthy hub where they can be able to meet together. So it's like a cafe style. Mm-hmm. So all the 4 First Nations will have that. And this is where our focus will be. It's providing the healthy foods required for those individuals, making sure all the infrastructure of helping what they want to be able to get is there, and also having a different system of payment banking information. So we're also working with another company that will assist in that area. So it's endless right now, but right now the First Nations want to form and have a business partnership with them. And we're also at Aki Energy, we want to be able to provide a kind of a healthy hub here as well, staffed by the people from Lion Lake. So it's just drawing and assisting and helping the whole community, not only for the health component, but also creating employment opportunities and other economic opportunities. So we're all excited, and this is where I'm feeling excited about things, being part of this, and working with my nation, I guess, per se. But I'm also very moving forward on the Aki Energy side. And with this new announcement yesterday, it just kind of goes on both sides. So good thing I have a lot of help. Don Sands, Sean, and also we have another staff member, Carl Ballin, that's just amazing guy that could do endless hours of work. And of course, Honey is there too. And we haven't, there's one guy that does a lot of work, Rodney. He's our director for Aki Foods. That guy you can count on being there every day. Just all around, all the staff, just kind of hard workers.
You forgot about the finance guy. If he ever listens to this, we might not get the paycheck.
Dominic. Dominic, we got to keep that guy happy. keep us on our toes. I said, Sean's spending too much money again.
I also heard, I just want to circle back a little bit, Darcy. You said that Raven was able to come to you and say, we have a purchaser for outcomes. So I'm wondering what is the role of intermediaries like Raven or for foundations in, from what I can gather from Raven, they do a lot of work in developing relationships and bringing people together and cultivating community. But I wonder is there a particular special role that an organization like Raven Indigenous Capital Partners can play in identifying outcomes and perhaps even approaching an outcomes purchaser with a view to helping them understand that there are outcomes to purchase and how to do it. So is that necessarily the role of an organization like Aki Foods or Energy to approach those outcomes purchasers, or is it better come from an intermediary like Raven?
Yeah. Our role is Aki's role is directly working with the community at the community level, working with First Nations, developing and maintaining
Right.
relationships in that space.
Right.
Whereas Raven is more like you said, yes, they're the ones that go and find the investors, social financiers or impact investors that's willing to have willing to do, are interested in and doing good things. There's a lot of people out there like that. And also, what Raven is also doing is that they're also trying to change the government's way of doing business. So they have close contacts. I believe they did hire a lobbyist to kind of wake up the government, saying we need a department that will buy outcomes, because the way that the government is built now, there's no such thing as outcomes buyer. But what we're operating under is a kind of a hybrid situation where CMHC hives money to do all this work, and they have to sign an agreement with host the First Nation, and they would, part of the agreement is that they have this money to do to install heat pumps and also renovate, and it goes into Raven's system. But instead of using that pot of money, they let it sit, and they go get investors and financiers, so that they're also building a awareness amongst the foundations and other investors. And once our work is complete, they'll release that money, and part of that money is to go back to the investors with a rate of return. I don't know what that is, but that's what they do. And I think the good work that they did in the government side is taking shape. There was talk about some years ago that they were trying to start this department, which would be called Outcomes Canada. I don't hear about that much anymore, but I think
let's bring it back.
I think similar to that, because you got to change some policies, maybe some legislation. I don't know, like the Treasury Board authorities. You know, there's a law that says, "Oh, this is how you got to spend your money." I think that's where the holdup is, in my mind. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I see.
Okay.
Well, and Peter, recently Raven raised, I believe, $50 million for outcomes purchasing. These aren't things that nonprofits like ours would necessarily be able to do.
Well,
So
certainly there's a great deal of practice and understandings that and complexity and sophistication that's involved in those kinds of arrangements and deals. And I imagine that for a lot of community organizations and nonprofits, that degree of complexity is just out of reach. That's kind of why I was asking about what is the role of an organization like Raven, and it sounds like they are very much leading the way in how to go about these things and shift systems. So, yeah, I just really wanted to sort of understand and draw that out. Because when we talk about outcomes purchasing, I've traveled digitally, Darcy, with Sean to explore outcomes purchasing in other communities. And it's one, it's an idea that can be tricky to get your head around. And two, there's sort of a glass wall or ceiling around the capacity for a smaller organization to understand how to make those complex arrangements and deals and have the financial heft to actually bring them through. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I'm in the world of what Raven is about the raising and all that funds that required. Uh, there's language there. I still trying to grasp what that exactly means. So that's a different world. So that basically our focus is on the community level
Mm-hmm.
and by making them understand what this outcome purchasing is all about.
Right.
And so we're still doing that. I know, and like you said, it's hard to wrap your head around that. It's just because we've been taught, and this colonial thing has been with us for a long, long time. So change is hard to change people, the society in general, but it's slowly making a turn. I think Manitoba is probably the only place in Canada that has that outcomes purchasing concept. We've gone out and talked about those and trying to, but it's visiting a community once and explaining this, it doesn't work. You got to go back and actually go for a second round or do and work with a community and actually do it themselves. If we could find something that they'd be able to work on for an outcomes purchasing.
Beautiful.
It seems
Sean, looked like something. Yep.
Well, yeah, no, I was gonna say, what Darcy's saying is that we've been doing this for 11 years, 10 or 11 years now, and we know a lot more now than we did. Poverty is not about poor people; it's about the failure of the systems that they're interacting with. And so our last 11 years of our careers have been about pushing against these systems and finding new approaches, because the main financial beneficiary of the work that Aki Energy and Aki Foods does is government, and we need to find new ways of engaging them. And I think I would agree, Darcy, we're pretty excited. We feel we've had a role to play in this major $130 million announcement that was made yesterday by the NDP. That seems likely that they'll be in government. And it also, we feel pretty excited about the role we've played in helping to shape Raven and the systems change that they're bringing. Everything they're working on is really about national rollout, because we need some major new ways of going head to head with diabetes, for example. So and it's here we are in 2023, and Peter, I think we should ask Darcy to come back every 3 months, just because things are moving so quickly, and get a sense as to what Aki Energy's up to.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. I know, Darcy, you've got to head out at the top of the hour, so maybe we'll just can we bring our time together to a close? And the two of you have been through quite a journey together, and clearly are kindred spirits. Would it be okay to maybe say a few words about why the work you're doing together is so important to you?
Sorry, distracted.
Me too, actually. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I was calling you. I was just wondering, Darcy, if we could hear a few words from you and Sean about why this work you're doing together is so important to you.
Nobody ever asked me that. Why it's important to you? That's a good question. It is definitely. I think we've been working in this colonial system so long, and we haven't gone anywhere. We're doing the same things day in and day out without no real results. So I think this way, actually doing something about it, is very uh, memorable to me. Exploring new ideas, new thoughts, and of course, you also need somebody to bounce ideas off. It just every time we get together with the staff, our synergy just keeps piling up, and every time we get together, if we have a challenge or an issue, we somehow figure things out. Not maybe not right away, but we get around a lot of stuff and survive. So that's what's going on this journey. Basically, is has been terrific. The people I've worked with. Kaylin was a big supporter here as well. She was started us from the beginning. Now she's doing a lot of different work with Purpose Construction. I got to say this, that when I was at AMC, I worked with the Manitoba Realtor Association. They wanted to do something reconciliation work, so they we met and we talked about how we can get the First Nations or low income be able to afford buy a house, because that's something our communities don't have. Is that I didn't have a system where my parents would be able to help me buy a house, or I didn't know anything about how to buy a house. So we had these classes, and they're still all going today. And Purpose Construction is working with them as well. So all these connections is anything related with housing I like doing, but this I like this sweet spot about the outcomes purchasing and all that. How we got there, it's good, and working with Sean like everybody else. That's Jeff and all the whole family is like a family. For a long trip, long journey, and then getting there. It's like it's like when you. I don't know if you guys go hunting, but I used to go hunting when I was a kid, and getting to that point and doing the stuff and coming back and just living that life. It's like that journey.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Nice.
Thank you, Darcy. And Sean, why is it so important to you, this work that the two of you do together?
Well, it has been quite a journey. The systems change is critical, I think, and we're actually making progress. I started at Build in 2006, and I can just look back and say, wow, like we've come a long ways and things are changing quickly. And Peter, that's one of the things I love about this 1 hour every week, Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. You said at 7 p.m. in the UK, that we're able to give people a lot of hope, I think, that things are about to change quickly. Mother Earth behind the scenes has been doing some amazing work, and that's reflected in the conversation we've had with Darcy here today. And Darcy, you're a fine man. Thanks for joining us, and this is a wonderful thing to have on YouTube and for our listeners to have access to.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all for the invite. It's been great. That was a whole hour.
Yeah. We'll see on Monday at staff meeting.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you very much,
right,
folks.
All right.
Really
Thank you, Darcy,
this.
and thank you, Sean. So with that, that will say that our time together today is closed. Next week, we are joined by Lindsay Harris of Propolis Housing in Kamloops, BC. They are leveraging community bonds, which we've spoken about a number of times on the show, to make what's important to them happen in their community with and alongside community. We're also joined by Megan Lucero next week, and she will join us from the west coast of the US of A. Megan is founder of People's Newsroom, and we are looking forward to bearing witness to their generative journeys too. We hope that you will join us. In the meantime, you can subscribe below. Find us at axiomnews.com on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X. For now, I'm your host, Peter Pula. Thanks for listening.